Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you for attending this panel, Face-to-Face 7, How to Replicate Sustainable Mobility. The organizers wanted us to address the question as follows. The part of public transportation in displacement could double worldwide by the year 2025. New hubs and new means of transport have emerged in parallel. Can we say that these services are really virtuous? Why are all urban transports not sustainable yet? Which ruptures are currently preparing? And which recommendations must be established for companies and users? To address this question, we have two personalities this morning. Marc-Henri Desportes, General Manager, Worldline Atos. Your background is in engineering, and you've been working at the Ministry of Finance. Prior to that, you joined Atos in 2009, and prior to that, you've been working in a bank, a big international bank. With us, Professor Kai-Uwe, Schrogl, Head of the Policies Department from the European Space Agency. You're a doctor in political science, I think, and you've been working, your specialty is really in space policies and space law. Okay, so what I suggest is, can you give us a brief overview of sustainable mobility from completely different angles, because obviously we have two different personalities here. So could you please answer, Professor Kai-Uwe, this topic? What is for you sustainable mobility and how it's likely to replicate and multiply in the future?
Fine. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. Good morning, everybody. I have the pleasure to introduce to you a few features of mobility. I will do that in a way that I touch upon main problems, main perspectives also, and I will provide you with an insight in one of the factors which you could regard as providing a solution, or at least to support solutions, and this is the use of satellites in supporting mobility. Now, mobility is all about us. It is about the population. Our needs and our requests for mobility are driving all the modes of transportation and all the modes of transport, also of goods. So when world population is growing, of course also the needs, the expectations in mobility are growing. And I put it out here for Europe at least, and you can see here that in the next 30 years, 35 years, we will at least see a transport passenger increase of 51%, by 2030 already 34%, and freight transport even more. We will have maybe 100% growth until 2050. And this, of course, shows how strained already our systems are, and that we have to do something in order to come up with solutions. Now, here in this circle, I point out what are the key challenges. And this is, I think, one of the basic elements we also might then discuss in our adjacent round of discussion and questions and answers. And you can see here that we face a number of challenges. And what is important, these are not challenges we take the one after the other or so. These challenges we have to face all at the same time, and we have to face them combined. So it means reduce the energy demand, avoid harmful emissions, raise the safety and the security, use better the existing transportation means, and improve multimodal transport chains. So these 5 requests and tasks and demands we have to face, and we should and have to take any means which are there and which might be coming up in order to manage and deal with this. Now, the modes of mobility, you see it here: aircraft, the sea, maritime traffic, road traffic, rail traffic. They all can be supported by one specific activity, space activity, and this is satellite navigation technology. You already know it by GPS, but you might also be aware that Europe is starting to have its own autonomous navigation satellite system, which is called Galileo, and which is aiming at improving our mobility, meeting our mobility demands, not only in Europe but worldwide, which includes also the developing countries, in the fields of aviation, rail, maritime, as well as in all the other services you can imagine, where you have to have a precise location, where you want to track movements, and where you have to have a precise time signal. Now, I show you one of these beautiful satellites. We will have more than 20 of those out there in outer space, and we will begin operations for that in only a few years. Now, let me go through 2 or 3 of the areas just to show you exemplarily how space can support mobility needs and mobility demands. And one is maritime services. You see here, maritime activities are and can be subdivided into a number of fields, which are civilian, military, which is trade, commerce, where you also have to include the air traffic over the sea. And for that purpose, this picture shows it in a graphical way. We have the opportunity to support that by a number of satellite missions. Now, I show you one example, and through this example you will immediately understand and realize how important it is to look down to Earth and what advantage it has for the understanding, the situational awareness in transportation. We take here the maritime services. You see here ships which are identified, ships which have on board a small receiver which is called the satellite identification system, and you see then the ones which we have identified as being ships but which do not have a receiver, and where we can then be alerted to then understand and reflect on what these ships are, who they are, what they are doing. In times of piracy, in times of movements over the seas, which should be better controlled, this is an important element of understanding what is going on the sea, on the high sea, and to have a better understanding of how to assess what is out there. So it does not simply have a military or defense purpose, but it is a better understanding of awareness, situational awareness, and of the control and understanding of mobility. Now, for the maritime services, we also can plot that in a different way. Let me try to do it here. So you can see from this identification services that we are able then to really plot the situation of thousands and thousands of ships. And you see here the way how the satellites are circling the Earth and covering the areas. And you see here another way of showing it. It demonstrates not only that through these services provided by satellites you can have a good understanding of what is going on, but if you plot it in such a way, you can also see where are the main links, where are the main traffic lines, where are the hotspots also, and what you also can see, where are areas where there is little traffic, where there is little mobility. And this is also something which we are and have to be aware of. Where are the disadvantaged areas? Where are those who are bypassed by mobility and by our services, by trade, and so on? So with these means, we can get a number of elements of better understanding of how the world works through mobility. One other example, it's also something where you might be surprised that we can use satellites for these purposes and what benefits they provide. We can track and monitor the ice level in the Arctic Sea. And only through the monitoring from outer space, you cannot do that on the spot, of course, only through that we will be able to better understand whether we can use new transport means, the northwest or the northeast passage, which would, in case we can use it, of course change the map which we have seen right before tremendously, because then the routes of traffic, maritime traffic, would go completely differently to the north and not so much to the south, which would have huge consequences for all countries and in particular also those who are neighboring to these areas. Aviation is another one. And there, I guess everybody, all of us have asked ourselves the question, how can we lose aircraft? How can aircraft like the Malaysian aircraft, which drowned then in the Indian Ocean, we still do not know whether it's the Indian Ocean or the Pacific Ocean, how can that happen? We have satellite receivers now, as I showed you, on board of ships. We have it in every car, but why don't we have it in airplanes? Well, this is a matter of regulation. It's upcoming, it's proceeding. We are ready to do that, as you can see here, with our satellite systems, with Galileo in particular, but we have to see that global regulatory processes are rather slow. And this then means that we will be able to also plot the aircraft, where they are, how they are behaving, and if they disappear, we then perfectly know where they have disappeared. One other not really funny, but also a bit strange example where you can apply satellite technology is the following. Through Earth observation, we have been very good in looking at what is happening when volcanoes break out, because volcanoes hinder and block air traffic in a tremendous way. You might remember the Iceland volcano, which stopped the transatlantic flights for weeks even. And here you can see how we can plot how a volcano breaks out, how it's distributing the ashes, and how we then can support the airlines of how to do their and reroute their traffic. Now, rail and road, as the last point, a lot of examples where you can do also precision mobility, so to speak, in parking trucks, in the way we are supporting logistics, where you can supervise everything a truck is doing en route. And of course, as we in Paris love to do it, navigation systems are also supporting, together with other satellite applications, the transport, the alternative transport means in big cities. So as a summary, we see space and satellite services as an enabler for our means and needs for transportation and mobility. And we are doing that at the European Space Agency also in view of supporting sustainability in general. So we have been preparing already 3 biennial reports on that. And I would like to end again in showing this chart which summarizes, I hope quite well, the real challenges we are facing, which is the reduce of energy, the avoidance of harmful emissions, the raise of safety for people, the use of existing infrastructure in a much better and more efficient way, and also the improvement of intermodality amongst the various sectors and the various opportunities and options for transportation. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Schrogl. So we will come back to the challenges facing sustainable mobility in general. But before coming back to these challenges, I would like Marc-Henri Desportes to address from the user point of view, completely different because you're going to talk more IT and digital issues and users. What are the issues regarding sustainable mobility? Thank you.
Thank you, Carine. So indeed, to introduce a bit my view and my point of view on the topic, I think it's important to explain in a few words what we do in Worldline. So Worldline is a subsidiary of Atos, which is a global leader in the IT industry. And Worldline in particular, with our 7,000 specialists, we focus on providing solutions for companies in the business to consumer, business to citizen domain to transact with their consumer, to their clients, to transact with the citizens. So what do I mean with transact? It means providing solutions for managing payments, for managing online or mobile commerce, for managing ticketing solution, for connected vehicles. I mean, all what enables this relationship. And so our point of view on the business we do on the topic is not that much a technical point of view, but very focused on user experience. How can we, through digital tools, improve the user experience, move to a different level of user experience? That's the angle I will have on the topic of sustainability. So Kai did share a few impressive numbers in the domain of increase of mobility in the coming years. I have one over one to share with you. Today we estimate that we have roughly 1 billion cars in the world. By roughly the next 20 years, projections are this number is going to triple. 3 billion cars going around the world. So for everybody having an interest in sustainability, if you think about it, if these 3 billion cars really materialize and are used the same way we use our cars today, it's not going to be nice. It's really not going to be nice. So I think we have indeed a big question about mobility and sustainability. And so my view on the topic is that I see three main ways to move in the direction of sustainable mobilities. And in many aspects, I will come back to what Kai did say. It's very much converging. The first way to improve, to go in the direction of sustainable mobility is just to avoid mobility. The way in which you will have the lowest impact is by not moving at all. It seems obvious, but it's always important to remember that a lot of moves can be avoided today. And by doing things differently, we can just use less, move less. So what I mean by that is that typically in the domain of service or commerce, you can do now much more and more things online. So you can, of course, buy online. You can buy through your mobile. You can also do more and more administrative stuff or even important commercial stuff by signing contracts remotely, by going on administrative procedures remotely. You don't need to queue anymore. You don't need to move to the locations anymore. So all this can be dramatically reduced by using the new digital tools. It can go even one step further in your work, in your day-to-day work. You have more and more tools now to work remotely. That's something typically in the Atos group we do a lot. Up to 30% of our colleagues now are working from homes on a daily basis because our tools are enabling that, because teleconference tools are also enabling not to travel to meet clients, to meet colleagues, and to work efficiently in a remote way. So it's another layer of mobility that we can definitely limit. And to come back to one point that Kai-Uwe mentioned, when you move, you can also move less. Navigation system is a very good point. There are, I think everybody is aware of statistics that show that in Paris, at a certain hour of the day, roughly 30% of the cars are just circling to find parking spaces. If you allow people to have a direct access to what are the available parking spaces to the nearest location, they can really be more efficient, faster to the point, and probably think a bit more about not using their cars the next time, but that's another story. So first challenge, first way to improve sustainable mobility is clearly to move less. Second way, I think, is to avoid individual mobility. Clearly using an individual transportation system has much more impact than using collective transport systems. And in this field, I see two main challenges in which the digital tools can help a lot. First one is by using the traditional public transportation, there is a big challenge of intermodality. Starting with the train, continuing with a bike, potentially finishing your journey by walking, but having that very, very well integrated, not having to think about planning this, about buying different tickets, having different rides. It has to be extremely seamless, it has to be extremely simple. And if you can get tools that plan this, that allows you to pay only with your mobile phone, not even thinking about it, going through it and not having to worry about it, I think it can be a big, big change. There is another dimension, which is a very much growing dimension, is the sharing economy. So car sharing is something that is booming due to the digital revolution, having through the new social networks, through the digital tools, the ability to know where the cars are, how to share with them, trust your counterpart, having payment modalities that are also efficient is a very strong enabler. We are talking about a market which is already $1 billion today in the world, and is going to be multiplied by 6 in roughly 2 to 3 years. So it can be a big game changer. This sharing economy, not being obsessed by owning your own cars. There is a very interesting statistic here that shows that for the below 18 years old people, it's more they are ready to live without a car, but not without internet. And I mean, the dream of a generation that was in the former years to achieve a certain status by having a car is something which is somehow fading away. So avoiding individual mobility is another way to go in the direction of sustainable mobility. And the third one will be, of course, to use, if you cannot avoid to move, if you cannot move by using collective means, is that your own transportation is an efficient one, is an eco-efficient one. So here it's a topic of electric cars. I put it at the third category because when you look at numbers, it's still not impressive. It's less than 1% of the car, and there is no visibility to go beyond this 1% threshold in any short-term perspective. So it's still very low. And from that point of view, I think the interesting dimension of electric car is still that it allows a new way of store energy and through their batteries and possibly to help the overall electric infrastructure to be more efficient. So the impact will be probably more indirect than direct of this revolution. But I think it is still an important one, and pushing and helping electric cars to develop is a very positive. And from that point of view, companies have a role to play. And to come back to what we do in Atos, we are in partnership with the Bolloré Group, who installed the Autolib system in Paris. We have our own fleet of Autolib cars, branded Atos, that are available for all the colleagues in the headquarters to travel electrically and access to the big Paris area using these cars. I think it's a very efficient way. It's a very good way. It's also simply more efficient because you find a parking space. You can use the auto-linked parking space, and so you are not driving around trying to find a parking space. So in short, I think thinking mobility from the end user point of view should be around avoiding mobility, having an efficient way to share mobility, or then having mobile eco-efficient ways of transportation.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions at this stage? Yes, ready? Yes, please. How many questions do we have at this stage too? Yes. Okay, 1 and 2. Yes, sorry, because I want this panel to be able to answer questions. So if there are questions at this stage, we take them, and then we will give back, of course, the floor to the speakers.
Thank you so much. Merci beaucoup. Je veux profiter de l'opportunité qui nous est offerte par la présence de Atos et de l'Agence spatiale européenne pour poser une question qui me taraude depuis un bon bout de temps. J'ai à côté de moi une ancienne de l'UNESCO et elle est encore à l'UNESCO, et on se souvient de Amadou Makhtar Mbow, si vous avez suivi l'évolution de l'UNESCO, qui parlait du nouvel ordre mondial de l'information et qui avait été balayé parce qu'il voulait un monde plus juste pour le partage de l'information. Aujourd'hui, on voit que le contrôle des satellites et de l'information digitale n'est pas véritablement bien partagé. Pour le prospectiviste que vous êtes, Madame Carine, alors, sur quoi dépend le contrôle des satellites, de l'investissement, quand on sait que la recherche repose sur la science qui est universelle et que des continents comme l'Afrique ont des chercheurs et des hommes de valeur au niveau de la NASA, et je pourrais même dire de l'agence européenne, je ne pourrais pas citer de nom, et qu'aujourd'hui nous ne contrôlons aucun satellite. Ça, c'est une première question. La deuxième, au niveau de la mobilité urbaine, la mobilité la plus importante aujourd'hui est la mobilité digitale, avec les social media. En termes de goods, je parle en termes de mobilité économique, de l'information économique. On se rend compte que nous sommes le centre du marché de demain pour les prospectivistes, c'est-à-dire l'Afrique. Et si la mobilité digitale n'est pas effective en Afrique, le monde aura un obstacle véritable. Et nous ne nous laisserons pas contrôler. Donc l'économie, si nous sommes le centre économique du monde, parce que le marché d'aujourd'hui et de demain, nous entendons avoir un contrôle sur la mobilité des biens. Et quelle réponse pouvez-vous nous donner pour nous permettre, après nos 3 tentatives de satellites, le Nigeria, on a lancé le satellite africain, on est à la recherche comment faire pour aujourd'hui avoir un contrôle sur les satellites et sur l'information digitale. Je vous remercie.
Merci beaucoup. Alors, 2 très très bonnes questions. D'ailleurs, je pense que la première question s'adresse à professeur Schrogl et la deuxième à Marc-Henri Desportes. Donc, ça tombe bien, on va pouvoir se distribuer ainsi les réponses. Alors, professeur Schrogl, c'est
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad that you are raising the New World Information and Communication Order, which during the 80s was certainly one of the key elements in global politics and actually provided for a strong political movement in a number of fields and areas. And as you rightly point out, one element was space, the utilization of satellites. The new order was not only discussed in UNESCO, but it was also discussed in the ITU, the International Telecommunication Union. And indeed, during the 80s, there were only 15 or 20 countries which had satellites at that moment. Nowadays, we have 60 countries which do have satellites and which do operate satellites. And almost all countries are part of international systems or are cooperating with global systems as Intelsat or SES, Astra or others. Now, what was achieved during the debates and the discussions and also the negotiations in the 80s and 90s was, I think, very remarkable. It was that, for example, every single country, member state of the International Telecommunication Union, is up to now and in the future guaranteed to have and to utilize one satellite position and the associated frequencies of the spectrum in the geostationary orbit, which is the orbit which is important for telecommunication satellites. And a lot of countries, including African countries, have taken up the opportunity they have and have built, bought, registered and operate a satellite up there in the geostationary arc. I think this is an achievement that would not have happened without this strong political movement of the New World Information and Communication Order. Nowadays, I think the kind of cooperation, I would call it cooperation in outer space, is based on a more equal footing. As I said, 60 countries are already operating satellites, which also means that we have 60 autonomous states out there, and that also the big users have to take care and have to take regard of all the other smaller users. And so the picture has changed. There has been an evolution, and I would even go so far to say that we have a stronger democratization of the use of outer space. There are a lot of elements, of course, which have to be and can still be improved, but I should also say that there have been a number of programs, cooperation programs with areas in the world in specific topics, not only related to the telecommunications and direct broadcasting, but also to Earth observation, where we operate, for example, systems which support everybody who is in need after natural disasters, to cope with the natural disasters through the provision of Earth observation data, telecommunication, as well as navigation signals. So I think we are on a good way since the 80s of making space available to all the nations around the globe, including the developing countries.
And maybe to bounce back on your second question, I think today we should not concentrate too much on tubes for circulation of information. The big value is in data. And everybody is convinced that the big value is in data. The control of the tubes, which is more the world of the telcos, is creating some value but has not captured the value of the digital revolution. The ones who are capturing the value of the digital revolution are the ones who produce, own, control the data. And from that point of view, I think we can be very optimistic, especially about Africa, because the future is all in front of us. In terms of data creation, the world trend is that in the last 2 years, we produced as much information as in the rest of the history of mankind. So we are in a trend in which the future is completely open, and the newcomers to the digital world, the more people-intensive areas, the more productive, creative environments are going to play a leading role. And from that point of view, the booming of Africa right now, its access to the digital revolution, the creativity, all what's behind, I think is a very promising point. But indeed, it will be extremely important to preserve the fact that you have the ownership of your data, you can master the use of your data, and you are not subject to agreements in which you work with players that are taking ownership or control of your information. I think that's the more important, even more important than the tubes. And of course, the satellite infrastructure is important, but through the agreement about the neutrality of internet, for the moment, it is still a pretty open. It is pretty open to value creation. What's very important is to make sure that the data you produce is something you are able to master, to reuse, to share among your population in the best possible efficient way.
Merci. Une autre question. Non, sorry. Monsieur là avait demandé la. Ça, voilà. By order. Hein. Je suis là pour surveiller. Hein. Je fais tout dans l'ordre. Hein. C'est mon job.
Olivier Dibijon, Sostanway. I speak in French. Vous avez apporté une double réponse qui me paraît extrêmement utile. Une réponse, il faut comprendre pour savoir si la mobilité est soutenable ou pas. Et vous avez apporté une réponse en termes de comportement. D'abord, la meilleure mobilité, c'est de ne pas bouger, etc., etc. Il me semble qu'il manque un troisième axe. C'est au service de quoi bougeons-nous? Ou au service de quoi ne bougeons-nous pas? Parce que si la meilleure mobilité, c'est de ne pas bouger, c'est au service de quoi? Je suis frappé de voir que toutes les politiques d'État convergent vers un seul objectif, c'est plus de PIB, plus de croissance. On veut faire de l'emploi pour augmenter le PIB, augmenter l'inflation, parce que s'il n'y a pas assez d'inflation, on ne sait pas rembourser les dettes bancaires. Et donc, du coup, on est dans une sorte de spirale, comme un hamster dans sa cage qui tourne autour du petit moulinet. Et donc, la question de à quoi sert de bouger et qu'est-ce que c'est qu'une mobilité soutenable? Je ne sais pas si la mobilité est soutenable si je ne sais pas à quoi sert-elle. C'est-à-dire au service de quel projet de développement. Et donc ça c'est une observation. Et ma question c'est du coup quelle relation vous avez à l'ESA? Je connais un petit peu la relation que vous avez à l'ESA, mais je trouverais intéressant que vous en parliez. Quelle relation vous avez vous dans le travail que vous faites avec les gouvernements, avec les territoires, notamment pour pouvoir les interpeller sur le sens de la question de la mobilité, parce que sinon le risque, c'est qu'on va travailler sur la mobilité verte, sous-entendu soutenable, mais en fait verte, on va travailler sur les semences, on va travailler sur la santé, on va travailler sur la finance, autant de silos, on va tous s'intéresser à ce que tout soit vert, mais on aura oublié l'essentiel, c'est au service de quel développement. Donc j'aimerais bien savoir quelle relation vous avez avec les politiques et avec les territoires dans ce sens, dans cette relation.
It's a difficult question. It's going to the very deep root of the sense of everything you were doing. And the real question is it the task and the target of private companies to come to governments and to challenge them on the fundamental targets of society? I think the question is very valid. I think it's a question to the civil society in general. So I'm not saying that we, as entrepreneurs, should avoid the topic. I think we need to stay humble by providing ideas about ways to do, more than challenging the goals or the meaning or the reason behind the politics decision. So I must say, as a citizen, I have my opinion as a person. I strongly believe that whatever the opinions about economic development, there is progress in the development of human interactions. The more people interact, the more they connect face-to-face. It has an importance, but also remotely, is creating value somehow. Monetize, maybe monetize, in some cases not monetizable, but I think developing human interaction is a positive goal. And everything in this dimension, I feel comfortable that I'm doing something which is going in the right direction. Maybe that's my personal answer to your question.
L'interaction, c'est au service encore de quoi? Est-ce que c'est au service de plus de flux monétaires ou est-ce que c'est au service d'un mieux vivre ensemble? Et c'est une vraie question qui est derrière la mobilité.
Well, we are in between the business and the commercial entities and the governments. We are an intergovernmental organization, but we are a technical organization, not a political organization. When Marc-Henri presented his first line of potential action or action, I also thought, well, is there a consensus on just reduce mobility, or don't we feel, all of us, that there is an explosion in mobility? Everybody wants to be even more mobile, not less. So how could you then convince the people? But this indeed it's a dialogue. It's the dialogue amongst the citizens. It has to grow. It can also be top-down when the political decision makers think they should make their strategies and implement them, maybe even against the will of the citizens. They have to, in the end, balance expectations and needs. Look at road traffic. I'm from Germany. We don't have a speed limit. But everybody knows this is stupid. It's crazy because there are so many dead drivers due to no speed limit, and of course ecologically for the environment it's a disaster. When you go with 200 with your Mercedes or Porsche, you blow out and use 30 or 40 liters instead of the 7 you could use and consume when you go 120. But look, it's the political and the societal dialogue which has to come to an equilibrium. And it's different all over Europe, and it's different all over the world, of course, because the expectations in other areas of the world and the political decision-making processes and the way positions are built are also completely different, that we, I think, cannot really guide it at this moment, as sorry as this might seem. What we are doing in ESA is we provide technological means of improving specific factors or specific elements of safe, clean, and good and reasonable supervised mobility. It is up to the decision makers to take them up, and there we are really political because we are also lobbying. As companies are lobbying the politicians, we are lobbying because we think we have services, we have technological means which are useful, which fit into concepts as sustainable development, and it then is up to the decision makers, to the politicians to take that up. But in this process, they are autonomous together with the societies they are representing.
All right, so we will not have a true discussion on ethical and philosophical meaning of sustainable mobility, but it's not an easy question. Last question, because I was told that we have only 5 minutes remaining.
Okay, thank you very much. Robert Bell, I was a moderator 2 days ago in another panel, and this is a question for Professor Schrogl. It's a technical question. Exactly a month ago today, I was at a conference at the European Space Agency here in Paris, and there was a presenter from the European Space Agency who said, in the context of the concept that the polluter pays, the polluter should pay, who said it's now possible, and this part I didn't follow, that it is done, is now possible to determine if a ship, using the satellite system, we saw this wonderful graphic you put up of shipping lanes, to determine if a ship is actually washing out its bilge water or dumping oil into the sea. And we can actually therefore identify, in order for the polluter to pay, you have to know who the polluter is. So with the satellite system, you can actually determine who's polluting at sea. So I have a double question. Number one, is that even possible now with current technology, or does it require that the ship actually cooperate and have some gizmo on board that is sending a signal to the satellite saying, I am polluting right now? And number two, if it is possible to track that now without the gizmo, is the European Space Agency actually doing it? Is there a data bank now existing of the polluters who could be made to pay? So thank you very much. These are totally technical questions.
I'm happy to respond. Indeed, I'm glad that my colleague did not contradict me, and I can build on that. So it is possible, it has already been possible, let's say 10 years ago, when we were able to have satellites with an accuracy of observation on what is a ship doing, whether it's trailing then oil when it washes its tanks or when it's spilling over used oil. This has been possible already for 10 years ago, but where we are now today is that we do have more satellites to look at that, because at that time it was not yet operational. A satellite was getting over each of the ships maybe every 2, 3 or 4 days. So we were not able to, in kind of real time, see what is happening on the seas. But this gap is closing in due to the fact that we have more and more satellites which are now having the accuracy to really observe and monitor that. So this is number one question. Number two question is, who is responsible for operational services in this field? And this is not the European Space Agency. We are preparing the technology for that, and then we transfer it to operational agencies, and for that purpose you have two, one on the European level, the European ESMA, European Maritime Safety Agency, located in Lisbon, and the International Maritime Organization, which is the global organization located in London. They are the ones who would be responsible for such an operational service which we could offer and which they then could operate, as we have operational services, for example, for climate monitoring or for weather monitoring in organizations like EUMETSAT.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry, we have to finish, stop here. I'm really sorry. I think there were some other questions, but let's have a break for lunch. Pardon. Is there a question? On m'a indiqué qu'il fallait maintenant arrêter la conférence. Donc, est-ce que monsieur a une question?
Le principe, parce qu'il me semble que j'ai entendu une contradiction. Quand on va faire du transport soutenable, je ne crois pas qu'il faudrait qu'on aille vers des principes de limitation de la mobilité individuelle. Je ne crois pas que là, on fait un effort de rupture et de propositions qui peuvent nous garantir une mobilité plutôt soutenable ou durable. Moi, je crois qu'on n'a pas fait assez d'efforts de rupture vers un changement. Moi, je pose simplement la proposition, au lieu de dire il faut limiter la mobilité individuelle, il faut étudier les possibilités de faire de la mutualisation du transport individuel, comme on a fait des mutualisations de la santé. Et ça fonctionne. Et mutualisation de l'éducation, de la formation, des infrastructures sur lesquelles nous sommes tous utilisateurs. Je crois qu'il faut appeler plutôt à aller vers le sens d'une plus forte mutualisation des transports individuels, d'accord, et qui nous mènerait certainement vers la démarchandisation de la mobilité. La démarchandisation de la mobilité. Merci.
Oui, alors ça c'est vraiment une question pour Monsieur Desportes, puisqu'il a abordé la question de l'économie du partage, l'économie collaborative au sens de justement mutualiser les déplacements. Donc peut-être pour approfondir cette question, peut-être répondre à la question de monsieur.
Oui, peut-être en français pour cette dernière question. Alors, Non, je pense que c'est pourtant ce que j'ai voulu dire. D'abord, quand je parlais de moins de mobilité, c'est permettre moins de mobilité, mais de laisser le choix. Moi, je ne suis pas très pour les politiques coercitives. Je pense qu'il faut étendre le champ du possible et que le champ du possible aujourd'hui permet déjà énormément de choses. On parlait tout à l'heure de est-ce qu'on veut aller vers un monde où est-ce que les gens souhaitent vraiment moins de mobilité. Je pense qu'en tout cas, ce qui est certain, c'est que les gens souhaitent moins de mobilité inutile ou contrainte et plus de mobilité pour le plaisir. Prendre sa voiture pour aller sur un parking de supermarché, prendre sa voiture pour aller faire une démarche administrative dans une caisse d'assurance maladie, je pense que personne ne voit ça comme une mobilité choisie. Aller, comme ça peut arriver, malheureusement, ça m'est même arrivé d'aller prendre un avion pour faire un aller-retour pour une réunion d'une demi-journée avec un client à l'autre bout du monde et n'avoir vu qu'un taxi, une salle de bureau et un aéroport. Ça aussi, c'est pas la mobilité dont on a réellement envie. Découvrir une nouvelle culture, voyager pour le plaisir, c'est un autre sujet. Et donc pour revenir sur le sujet de la mobilité partagée, je pense que c'était mon point quand je disais éviter la mobilité par les moyens individuels. Donc c'est le car sharing, le partage des voitures, c'est le fait que les transports en commun sont beaucoup plus multimodaux et permettent un voyage en passant d'une voiture partagée à un train, à un bus, avec un seul moyen, avec un seul ticket de transport. Après, le fait de ce que cette mutualisation doit aller vers une démarchandisation, ça c'est une opinion que je qualifierais plus philosophico-politique, et je pense qu'il y a là-dessus il y a des points de vue divers. Je pense que une économie ouverte et une marchandisation ouverte et non monopolistique est une bonne chose et que ça permet à beaucoup de personnes de rentrer librement et sur la base du volontariat dans ces systèmes de partage. Je pense que la mutualisation pose quand même toujours une question après de mutualisation forcée qui est un autre débat.
Thank you very much. I would like to end this panel now. Thank you. I retained from this discussion this morning that there are a lot of issues. The one of sharing I think is important. The one of infrastructure accessibility, still there's path for development. I learned a lot of things this morning. I think there's issues related to surveillance, which is actually security and surveillance of his view, and as well I think there's still an issue for equalities, having more equalities instead of sustainable mobility. So thank you very much to both of you, Marc-Henri Desportes and Professor Schrogl. Thank you.
Merci.